Have you ever truly asked yourself what it would feel like to spend an entire night beneath one of the world's most romantic cities, but in a place where romance has no meaning? Imagine descending into a narrow staircase carved into cold limestone, your footsteps echoing as if the walls themselves are whispering back. Above you, life goes on, cafes buzzing, lights glowing, music floating in the air. But here, below the surface, silence reigns, broken only by the drip of unseen water and the faint rattle of loose stones. Before we plunge into this journey together, I have a favor to ask. Take just a few seconds, press the like button, let me know in the comments where you are listening from. And make sure you have subscribed to the channel. Only if you feel ready, of course. Ready to trade the comfort of your room for the damp embrace of Paris's underworld. Now, let us begin. The catacombs of Paris are not simply underground tunnels. They are a labyrinth, an empire of the dead, stretching for more than 200 miles. Yet only a small fraction is mapped, and even less is open to the public. The rest, it lies hidden, waiting, where daring explorers sometimes vanish without a trace. This place was born from necessity. Limestone quarries turned into ossuaries when the city above became too crowded with corpses. Millions of bones were moved here, stacked into neat, horrifying patterns. Skulls gazing outward, as if to remind every visitor, death is organized, methodical, patient. As you stand at the threshold, the air greets you differently. It clings to your lungs, heavier, damper, flavored with dust and centuries. Your flashlight beam cuts across walls of bones, and you realize these are not props, not Hollywood decorations. They are real remains, human remains. Each skull once held thoughts, dreams, laughter. And now they rest here, silent, unblinking, but not entirely absent. Because when you spend long enough in the catacombs, you begin to feel watched. Not by cameras, not by tourists, but by something older. You might laugh at first. I could survive one night, you tell yourself. Maybe you even picture yourself as Indiana Jones, flashlight in one hand, bravado in the other. But as the minutes tick by, the darkness thickens, and that confidence begins to crack. You hear your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. A drop of water falls, but in the stillness it sounds like a gunshot. Your shadow trembles against the skulls, and suddenly you are not sure it is your shadow at all. The truth is, you would not last a night. Not because of monsters, though people swear they have seen them. Not because of traps, though tunnels have swallowed explorers whole. But because the catacombs play the cruelest trick of all, they turn your own mind against you. The silence becomes a roar. The dark becomes alive. Your imagination, normally your ally, starts crafting horrors more vivid than any nightmare. And the worst part, the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to tell where your imagination ends and the catacombs begin. You take your first steps deeper into the catacombs, and instantly, the city you know vanishes. The cobblestone streets, the perfume shops, the laughter of strangers, all of it fades above your head, replaced by a silence that feels thicker than stone. Your flashlight beam wavers against damp limestone walls, and you realize that beneath Paris lies another city, one that is carved from the earth itself. These tunnels were not built to be a cemetery. No, long before they became the resting place for the dead, they were quarries. Men with picks and hammers once dug here to extract limestone. The very stone that built Paris's most iconic landmarks, the Louvre, Notre Dame, bridges and palaces. With every block pulled from the ground, the city above rose higher, prouder. But like every bargain, this one had a price. Hollow veins of rock, stretching for miles, left the ground unstable. By the 18th century, buildings began to sink, streets collapsed, and people demanded a solution. And the solution was macabre. Paris was running out of room for its dead. Cemeteries overflowed, coffins broke open, diseases spread from the rotting corpses packed above ground. It was a nightmare of both smell and sight. So, city officials decided to use the quarries. Beginning in the late 1700s, carts filled with bones rolled into the darkness. Night after night, entire cemeteries were emptied, Priests recited prayers over wagons of skulls as they were tipped into pits, stacked and arranged like grim mosaics. Now, as you walk these tunnels, you are tracing not just the path of miners but of millions of lives. The passageways twist and turn, some wide enough for 3 men to walk shoulder to shoulder, others narrowing so much you must turn sideways, your breath brushing the damp stone. Every corner feels the same, yet different. The walls sweat with moisture, dripping cold trails down your neck if you dare to stand too close. And always, you sense the weight of Paris above, an entire city balanced on top of bones. There is something humbling about that. Tourists on the Champs-Élysées, sipping wine, unaware that beneath their feet lies this empire of shadows. Lovers taking photographs by the Seine never suspect the rivers of skulls running under their shoes. And tonight, it is not a museum tour for you. There are no guards, no exit signs, no friendly guides holding flashlights. There is only you, the dark, and the endless roads carved by human hands centuries ago. Your mind whispers, what if you take one wrong turn, even with a map, even with a guide? The catacombs are notorious for disorienting explorers. Without either, you are walking blind. One step left when you should have gone right, and suddenly the walls close in. You are in a place that looks identical, yet you no longer know where you are. Panic simmers beneath your ribs, because here, getting lost does not mean embarrassment. It means never being found. The deeper you walk, the more the air feels alive, not with breath, but with memory. Each step crunches faintly on gravel, yet your ears insist they hear something else. Whispers, shuffles, the almost human sigh of stone settling. You stop, you listen, silence. But silence here is never empty. It is crowded, saturated, brimming with echoes from the past. Picture this, more than 6 million souls rest beneath Paris. That number is staggering, greater than the living population of the city above. Every skull you pass belonged to someone who once loved, argued, dreamed. There were bakers, soldiers, musicians, children. They lived in medieval alleys. They danced in candlelit halls. They whispered secrets in markets. And now they are reduced to bone, anonymous yet strangely united. In life they were scattered. In death they are gathered here, shoulder to shoulder, skull to skull. As your flashlight brushes across their hollow sockets, you cannot help but imagine them watching. Some people say the catacombs are haunted, that voices call out from the walls. Skeptics laugh, claiming it is just acoustics, sound bouncing unpredictably in narrow tunnels. But science cannot explain the way you sometimes hear your own name carried on the damp air. Nor can it soothe the dread that coils in your stomach when the echo of your footsteps lags just a beat too long, as if another pair follows behind. Think about it. If 6 million souls were pressed into this space, what weight of emotion lingers? Grief, fear, unfinished business, maybe even anger. The French Revolution sent waves of the dead down here. So did plagues, wars, famines. This is not a gentle cemetery where flowers soften the view. This is a warehouse of mortality, stripped bare of ceremony. The walls do not ask for your prayers. They simply show you the truth. Death outnumbers the living. Your imagination starts to paint stories on the walls. Was this skull a soldier who died defending Paris? Was that femur once a dancer's leg? Did these children play in the streets above before an epidemic swept them away? Every bone is a biography erased of its name. Yet together, they speak louder than any written history. They remind you that no matter how high the city builds above, its foundations are soaked in mortality. And then, the strangest thought strikes you. What if they resent you, you alive, intruding on their eternal dormitory? You with your heartbeat, your warm skin, your fragile courage. Imagine 6 million eyes turning toward you in unison, whispering the same question. Why are you here? Your flashlight flickers just once, but it is enough to send a cold ripple through your spine. You squeeze it tighter, shake it, and the beam steadies. Yet the thought burrows in, what if it goes out? Down here, darkness is not just an absence of light. It is a presence, thick and suffocating, like ink spilled across reality. Scientists have studied what happens when the human brain is deprived of light for long periods. Vision is our dominant sense, the one that reassures us that the world exists beyond our skin. Remove it and the mind begins to panic. Within minutes, your pupils stretch wide, straining for photons that never come. Your brain, desperate, starts filling the void with inventions, dots, shapes, phantom flashes. Some people call them hallucinations. Others call them the first whispers of madness. Imagine standing in such total darkness that you can't see your own hand in front of your face. You wave it back and forth, but there is nothing. Not even a blur. Just the certainty of being swallowed. In the catacombs, if your light dies, that is what awaits you, the purest dark you will ever know. And it is terrifying not because of what you see, but because of what your mind insists might be hiding in it. Psychologists explain that in sensory deprivation, the brain amplifies tiny noises and sensations. A drip becomes a scream. A brush of air feels like a hand. Down here, with 6 million silent witnesses, every flicker of imagination becomes fuel for fear. The silence hammers louder than any drum. Your own breathing begins to sound foreign, like someone standing right behind your ear. Now let us be honest, you think you are brave, spend 10 minutes in the catacombs without light. Most people do not last that long. Soldiers in training, explorers, even seasoned cavers admit that the dark here feels different, heavier, more hostile. It presses against your eyes, crawls into your ears, burrows into your chest. It does not just surround you, it becomes part of you. And here's the cruel twist. Humans have an instinctive fear of predators in the dark. Our ancestors survived by avoiding shadows where beasts lurked. That instinct has not gone away. So when the darkness of the catacombs envelopes you, your body reacts as if wolves, or worse, are crouching just beyond reach. Your heart races, your muscles tighten. Fight or flight surges through your veins, but there is nowhere to run. So ask yourself, if your flashlight died right now, and you were left in silence and blackness, how long before your mind invented something staring back at you? The first thing you notice is not the silence, or even the darkness. It is the air. Thick, damp, and sour, it clings to your throat like wet cloth. You take a breath and instantly regret it, because each inhalation tastes of stone dust, mold, and something else, something metallic, faintly sweet, like rusted iron or dried blood. It is the scent of centuries, compressed into the lungs of the earth. In the catacombs, ventilation is scarce. The air does not circulate the way it does above ground. Instead, it lingers stagnant, heavy with the exhalations of millions who came before. Scientists would tell you that much of the smell comes from mineral decay, from the chemical marriage of moisture and limestone. Others would add that microbes thrive in these conditions, releasing odors that prick the nose and unsettle the stomach. But if you ask your instincts, they will tell you something simpler. The air smells like death. Now imagine staying here for hours. The longer you breathe, the more it saturates you. Your clothes cling with dampness. Your hair absorbs the odor until it feels as though it will never wash out. Your tongue tastes bitterness, a metallic tang that refuses to leave. The catacombs do not just surround you, they invade you, slipping into every pore, every cell, reminding you with every breath that you do not belong here. Some explorers have reported nausea, dizziness, even hallucinations after extended time underground. Oxygen is lower here. Carbon dioxide lingers, invisible but dangerous. In small amounts, it makes you anxious, restless, uneasy. In larger amounts, it suffocates. Imagine trying to sleep with the knowledge that the very air filling your lungs might betray you. Imagine lying on cold stone, the damp seeping through your clothes, and wondering whether each breath will be your last. And there is another layer. Smell is the sense most tightly bound to memory. The odor of the catacombs does not just assault your nose. It drags your mind to places you do not want to go. Rotting meat, rusting metal, hospital corridors, funeral homes. You can't control what images surface, and each memory tightens the knot of unease in your stomach. You tell yourself it is just chemistry, just biology. Yet the thought creeps in, what if the smell is not only from stone and microbes? What if, after centuries, some essence of death remains suspended in the air? What if every breath you take carries not just molecules, but fragments of those 6 million lives? Flesh turned to dust, mingling with your lungs. You try to laugh it off, but the air is too heavy for laughter. It settles on you like a shroud. And the more you breathe, the more you feel like the catacombs are breathing you. You pause for a moment, holding your breath, not because you want to, but because you must. Down here, every sound carries weight. The catacombs are a symphony of silence. But it is never the kind of silence you find in a library or a sleeping room. No, this silence breathes, bends, and breaks in ways that make your ears doubt themselves. At first, you hear the obvious, the drip of water falling from the ceiling, echoing into infinity. A pebble skitters under your boot, magnified as if you kicked a boulder down a canyon. But then subtler noises creep in. A shuffle just behind you, the faint murmur of voices in the next corridor. A sigh that seems too human to dismiss. You spin your flashlight, but the tunnel is empty. Always empty. Science has a neat explanation. The acoustics of narrow stone passages distort sound. Waves bounce, overlap, and trick the brain into thinking there are whispers where there are none. Your own footsteps return a heartbeat later, sounding like another traveler pacing behind you. The sound of your jacket brushing the wall becomes, for one horrifying instant, the rasp of someone else's breath. But science does little to comfort you when the hair on your arms rises. You know what your ears heard. You know you did not imagine that low chuckle curling through the dark. Some explorers swear the catacombs test not your eyes but your ears. They say the longer you stay, the more the tunnels begin to talk. Sometimes with words, sometimes with laughter, and sometimes with screams that come from nowhere and end just as suddenly. Think about how vulnerable you are to sound. We are wired to respond to it. A snapping twig in a forest could mean a predator. A cry in the night demands attention. Down here, in the absence of light, your ears take command. They strain for every detail, desperate to give meaning to the void. But the void gives back only confusion. You close your eyes for a second, foolishly thinking it might help. It does not. The darkness doubles. A whisper curls around your left ear. Go back. You jerk your head, but there is nothing there. Only the drip, drip, drip of endless water. You laugh nervously. Maybe it was just your imagination. Right, but even your laugh sounds strange, bouncing from wall to wall, returning to you deeper, older, like someone else's laugh layered on top of yours. And then comes the worst moment, when you realize that if someone truly were walking behind you, breathing down your neck, you might never know until their hand touched your shoulder. Because in the catacombs, sound is both your only guide and your most merciless deceiver. You have walked for what feels like hours, yet the tunnels remain endless, twisting like veins through the earth. Every corner you turn looks just like the last. Arched ceilings of limestone, walls damp with moisture, floors scattered with gravel. If not for your flashlight beam, you would swear you were walking in circles. But even with it, the unsettling truth presses in, you might already be lost. The catacombs are a labyrinth in the truest sense. They sprawl beneath Paris for hundreds of miles, a honeycomb carved by centuries of miners, priests and engineers. Maps exist, yes, but only for the small section open to tourists. Beyond that, the network fractures into countless passageways. Some wide and stable, others crumbling, narrowing into gaps so small you must crawl on your belly to pass. Many of these paths have no exit, no return. They simply end in silence. Think of a maze in a cornfield, where you can look up and see the sky. Even then, people panic when they can't find the way out. Now replace corn with walls of bone. Replace sky with unbroken stone. And replace fresh air with the heavy breath of the underground. That is the catacombs. A maze where panic does not just rattle your nerves. It threatens your survival. There are stories, whispered like urban legends, of explorers who wandered off the marked paths. Some were found days later, dehydrated, disoriented, crawling toward faint sounds that turned out to be echoes of their own voices. Others were never found at all. Their flashlights likely died. Their maps proved useless. In the dark, the catacombs hold them still, their bodies becoming part of the story, another silent chapter in the maze. The cruel trick of the labyrinth is not just its complexity, but its sameness. Each corridor mirrors the next. The brain, desperate for landmarks, invents them. Didn't I see that crack before? Wasn't that skull leaning just like that one? You convince yourself you recognize the path, only to realize you have been spiraling deeper all along. And then comes the moment when you stop trusting yourself. Was that the left turn you should have taken? Did you pass this corner before? Your memory falters. Your steps grow hesitant. And hesitation down here is deadly, because while you pause, the catacombs do not. They press in, cold, patient, ready to swallow you whole. So imagine it now, your flashlight beam trembling, your pulse hammering. You stand at a fork in the labyrinth, left or right. One way may lead closer to freedom. The other may end in a chamber with no exit, where your shouts will echo unheard until your voice gives out. And the terrible truth is this: down here, in the belly of the maze, you do not get a second chance. It begins with a shadow, just at the edge of your flashlight beam. You sweep the light across the wall. Nothing. Bare stone, stacked skulls. Silence. You take another step, and there it is again, movement, quick, retreating. You tell yourself it is only your imagination. But deep down, you know the catacombs thrive on imagination, feeding it, bending it until you no longer know what is real. For centuries, locals have whispered about spirits wandering these tunnels. They call them the âmes perdus, the lost souls. Men who died in wars, women who perished in childbirth, children taken by plague, all drawn down here, restless, unwilling to be forgotten. Some say they appear as pale shapes drifting between corridors. Others say they whisper directly into your ear, begging for prayers or warning you to leave. There is the story of Philibert Espert, a doorman at the Val de Grace Hospital. In 1793, he ventured into the catacombs carrying only a single candle. Days later, he was found dead. His body collapsed in a chamber far from the entrance, his keys still clutched in his hand. Locals say his ghost still roams the tunnels, searching for a way out. Visitors claim to hear keys jangling in the dark, long after their own pockets have been checked. And it is not just old tales. Even modern explorers, armed with headlamps and cameras, have reported strange encounters. Footsteps echoing when no one is behind them. Cold bursts of air sweeping past in windless tunnels. One group swore they saw a figure crouched in the distance, but when they chased it, the corridor ended abruptly. Another video, widely circulated online, showed a man dropping his camera as he ran screaming through the tunnels. The footage ends with only darkness and the sound of his frantic breathing. He was never identified. Science insists there are explanations. Echoes, drafts, psychological stress. But when you are down here, alone, with 6 million skeletons pressing on every side, those explanations feel paper thin. The truth is, human beings have always sensed presence in places heavy with death. Whether ghost or memory, it does not matter. What matters is the feeling that you are not alone. And the cruelest part, sometimes that feeling comforts you, because being alone here seems unbearable. Until you remember, if you are not alone, then who, or what, is with you? The catacombs test not only your courage but also your mind. Down here, in the absence of sunlight, with only your flickering beam to hold reality together, your brain begins to rebel. Darkness does strange things to human perception. It strips away certainty, leaving space for the imagination to bloom like mold in damp corners. First come the simple tricks. You see faint sparks, floating dots of light, like fireflies that vanish the moment you focus. Scientists call these phosphenes, the brain inventing light where none exists. Then shadows deepen into shapes. A pile of bones takes on the outline of a crouching figure. A curve of rock becomes the hunch of a stranger's back. Your mind, desperate to make sense of chaos, builds stories out of stone. Stay longer and the tricks sharpen. Some explorers have reported hearing voices, though their companions swore they said nothing. Others swore they felt a hand brush their shoulder, only to find themselves completely alone. Deprived of stimulation, your brain fills in the blanks with the most primal materials it knows: fear, threat, danger. And so you begin to hallucinate not unicorns or rainbows, but the very things that terrify you most. Imagine sitting in total darkness, the beam of your flashlight dead, the silence stretching too long. At first, your thoughts chatter nervously, filling the void. But then, whispers rise in the quiet, syllables stitched together from nothing. You hear your name, you hear laughter, you hear crying, and you realize it all comes from within your own skull. Yet it sounds so real that you turn your head, searching for the speaker. The catacombs amplify this descent into unreality. The dripping water becomes footsteps. A breeze across your cheek feels like a hand. The smell of damp limestone carries the phantom sweetness of decay. Every sense conspires against you until you are no longer sure what is external and what is invented. Some psychologists argue this is survival at work. The brain would rather hallucinate threats than miss real ones. Better to imagine a predator than fail to notice one creeping closer. But in a place like this, where the only predator is your own mind, that instinct becomes a curse. And here's the true horror. Once the hallucinations begin, they feed on themselves. The more afraid you are, the more intense they become. A flicker becomes a face. A whisper becomes a voice. A breeze becomes a touch. Until finally, the line between imagination and reality dissolves entirely. And you are left wondering which will consume you first, the catacombs or your own mind. The temperature drops the deeper you go, until the chill feels less like air and more like a living thing wrapping itself around you. Down here, the catacombs remain at a steady 14 degrees Celsius, about 57 Fahrenheit, year-round. It does not sound too cold, not at first, but the dampness changes everything. Moisture clings to your skin, seeps through your clothes, and creeps slowly into your bones until the cold feels permanent. Imagine sitting on stone for hours, the hardness numbing your muscles while the chill seeps through your spine. Your fingers stiffen around the flashlight, trembling not from fear alone but from the refusal of your body to generate enough warmth. You stamp your feet, rub your arms, exhale hot breath into your hands. But the cold refuses to leave. Down here, warmth does not spread. It drains. This is not the sharp, biting cold of winter wind. It is something heavier, quieter, more insidious. The kind of cold that convinces you will never be warm again. Psychologists have noted that in prolonged damp cold, the body begins to interpret discomfort as danger. Anxiety spikes, heartbeat quickens, muscles tense, and the longer it lasts, the more exhaustion takes over, leaving you sluggish, less alert, more prone to mistakes. Now imagine trying to sleep. You curl against the wall, pulling your jacket tighter, but the stone beneath you acts like ice, pulling heat away. The air smells wet, metallic, oppressive. You shiver, not in short bursts but in waves that never end. Every time you close your eyes, you wake again to the same cold pressing against your chest, whispering, "You do not belong here." Some explorers have said the cold feels almost intelligent, like the catacombs themselves are aware of your body's fragility. They describe hearing their teeth chatter as though the tunnels were laughing back at them. Others claim the cold induces dreams, visions of pale figures crouched just beyond the light, waiting for you to drift into unconsciousness so they can move closer. And even if you tell yourself it is all in your head, the physical truth remains: hypothermia does not require snow or sub-zero weather. Prolonged exposure to damp chill can lower your body's core temperature. Confusion sets in. Fatigue takes hold. Eventually, your body betrays you, first with shivers, then with silence. The cruel irony, as hypothermia deepens, you begin to feel warm, cozy, even. Many victims are found having removed their clothes, convinced they were overheating. Imagine that fate in the catacombs, stripping away your last defenses, embracing the false comfort, lying back against stone skulls as your body quietly surrenders to the cold. So ask yourself, could you truly last a night when the chill is not just around you, but inside you? So here you are, deep underground, surrounded by walls of skulls, breathing air that tastes of stone and centuries, chilled to the marrow, with silence that laughs at your every breath. The question presses in harder than the weight of the city above. How do you survive a night in the catacombs? At first, your instincts shout simple commands: find warmth, find safety, find a way out. But the catacombs offer none of these easily. You think of making a fire, but there is no wood, no fuel, and the very idea of smoke here feels suicidal. The air already clings heavy in your lungs. Add fire, and you would choke yourself faster. You think of food or water, but you did not bring enough, and down here, the only water trickles in dark puddles you dare not touch. Would you drink from them, risk infection just to quench your thirst? You try to imagine strategies, mark your path with chalk, leave stones behind, anything to track your way. But every wall looks the same, and your markings vanish in the endless repetition of corridors. GPS won't help you. Phones lose signal almost immediately. It is you, your light, your memory, and your memory is already starting to betray you. And then comes the greatest survival tactic of all, mastering your own mind. Because the catacombs do not just test your body, they test your sanity. Could you control your fear long enough to think clearly? Could you resist the urge to run blindly when every whisper begs you to? Could you sit in silence, forcing yourself to breathe slowly, fighting against panic's grip? Let us be honest. Imagine it is you down here. The flashlight flickers. The cold gnaws. You hear footsteps that are not yours. What do? Do you sing to yourself, hoping sound will keep you calm? Do you talk out loud, reminding yourself you still exist? Or do you crouch in silence, clutching your knees, hoping the night will pass? Experts in survival often say, conserve your energy, regulate your breath, keep moving slowly. But advice from textbooks means little when your nerves are unraveling. Fear drains you faster than hunger. Panic burns more energy than walking. And here, energy is everything. So the real question is not whether you could survive the catacombs. It is whether you could survive yourself. The labyrinth does not kill you outright. It waits patiently for you to break your own mind. And once that happens, the night wins. Somewhere in the darkness, you hear it, the faint trickle of water. At first, it seems harmless, even comforting. Water means life, does not it? But in the catacombs, the sound of water is not a promise. It is a reminder that beneath the bones and the stone, another force moves silently, carving its own labyrinth, the underground rivers of Paris. These streams snake through the tunnels, sometimes shallow enough to splash across your boots, sometimes pooling into black basins that reflect your trembling flashlight like liquid mirrors. Their origins trace back to natural springs and centuries of seepage, flowing in ways even engineers struggle to map. To explorers, they are both a guide and a curse. Follow the water, some say, and you might find your way out. Others warn, follow it, and you might follow it forever, deeper and deeper until it swallows you whole. The sound of dripping becomes hypnotic. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop lands with the weight of a heartbeat, echoing in the silence. Before long, your ears start to deceive you. Was that water or a footstep? Was that ripple natural? Or did something move beneath the surface? You shine your light across the pool and see nothing but your own reflection, distorted, stretched, as if the water were mocking you. Some explorers tell stories of chambers half-flooded, where the ceiling presses low and the only way forward is to crawl through icy water. Imagine that, the stone above your head scraping your back, the water soaking your chest, each breath a desperate calculation. One slip, one wrong movement, and the pool becomes a grave. And yet, the presence of water lures you. Your throat is dry, your lips cracked. The puddle glistens like salvation. But you know better. Or do you? Would you kneel, cup your hands, and risk swallowing centuries of decay, bacteria, and whatever else festers here? Or would thirst gnaw at you until your will collapses? Until you decide that a poison sip is better than no sip at all. There is a cruel poetry to it. The catacombs, filled with death, still carry rivers of life, but the two mix inseparably. You cannot drink without risk. You cannot wade without fear. Even the water becomes a ghost, whispering choices you would rather not face. And as you sit there, listening, you realize the trickle has grown louder. Sounds less like drops and more like whispers, a chorus rising from the dark. You lean closer, straining to hear, and for just a moment you are certain the water is speaking your name. Every labyrinth has secrets, but the catacombs are built from them. For every mapped corridor, there are dozens that remain uncharted, sealed off by rubble, collapsed stone, or simply fear. Even today, centuries after the first bones were carried down here, no one knows the full extent of this underground empire. There are chambers whispered about but never found, places rumored to hold not just bones but artifacts, altars, and messages carved into the walls by hands long gone. Urban explorers speak of strange symbols etched into limestone, circles, arrows, cryptic markings. Were they guides left by miners, ritual signs, or warnings meant to keep intruders away? No one can say for sure. Some passages are rumored to contain murals, painted in secret by 18th and 19th century artists who snuck below with candles and paintbrushes. Others insist there are hidden vaults where revolutionaries plotted, using the catacombs as secret meeting grounds. And then there are the darker stories, of rooms used for forbidden ceremonies, where chanting echoed against skull-lined walls and shadows moved in patterns no human hand could create. In 2004, police stumbled upon something that seemed like fiction, a hidden chamber complete with electricity, a cinema screen, and rows of seats. Someone had built an underground theater inside the catacombs. Days later, when authorities returned, the place was abandoned, with only a note left behind. Do not try to find us. If such modern secrets exist, what older ones still hide, buried deeper? The truth is unsettling. You could walk these tunnels for years and never know what lies behind the next sealed wall. Some explorers claim to have discovered staircases descending even further, into levels no one admits exist. Others speak of sudden dead ends that were not there before, as if the catacombs themselves rearranged their design to keep their mysteries. And here's the thought that chills you most. Perhaps the catacombs do not want to be fully explored. Perhaps the secrets that linger, murals, symbols, hidden chambers, are not meant for the living. Perhaps they are meant only for the dead, who alone have the time to uncover them. So as you pass another wall of bone and see faint scratches you cannot decipher, ask yourself, is this a map, a message, or a warning? And do you really want to know the answer? Legends are frightening, but the truth is worse. People have disappeared in the catacombs, and not all of them were found. These tunnels are not just a place for stories. They are a place where real lives have ended in silence. One of the most famous cases is that of the so-called man in the video. In the 1990s, a VHS tape was discovered by urban explorers. The footage showed a man wandering deep within the catacombs. His breathing ragged, his camera shaking. He turned corners frantically, marking walls, muttering to himself. The video grew more erratic, his panic rising until finally the camera dropped, the light swung wildly, and the screen went black. No one knows what became of him. His body was never found. Some claim the catacombs claimed him as their own, adding one more soul to the labyrinth. But he is not the only one. In 2017, two teenagers ventured into a restricted section of the catacombs. When they failed to return, search teams combed the tunnels for days. Finally, they were discovered, alive, but barely, disoriented, dehydrated, clinging to each other in the dark. If rescuers had been hours later, their story would have ended differently. Police records contain scattered notes about other vanishings, people who entered illegally and never returned. Some may have escaped unseen, embarrassed and silent, but others, their silence remains permanent. Their families waited, their names faded, and the catacombs grew by invisible victims. And then there are the stories from explorers themselves. One group reported finding a shoe wedged between rocks, far from any known path, its leather still supple as if recently abandoned. Another stumbled upon graffiti spelling help in shaky letters, though no one ever reported that distress call above ground. Skeptics argue that the catacombs exaggerate risk. They say most disappearances are urban legend or misremembered tales passed from one explorer to another. Yet even they cannot deny the truth. People have been lost here. The evidence is not just rumor. It is keys found clutched in skeletal hands. It is bones discovered in sealed chambers with no record of transfer. The catacombs do not need monsters to be deadly. They are already a predator, patient and silent. All it takes is one wrong turn, one dead flashlight, one slip into panic, and suddenly you are not a visitor anymore. You are part of the statistics. One more story whispered in the dark. So when you walk these halls, ask yourself, if you vanish tonight, who would know where to look, and would they ever find you? Science is powerful, but in the catacombs, even reason feels fragile. You could arm yourself with textbooks, with theories of geology, psychology, and acoustics, but all of them start to falter when you are surrounded by 6 million silent witnesses. Take sound, for example. Acousticians will tell you that whispers in the catacombs are nothing more than echoes, sound waves bouncing from stone to stone. Logical, yes, but how do you explain when those whispers form words, when they call your name in a voice you recognize, though no one living is nearby? Or consider the cold. Thermodynamics explains why stone holds chill, why dampness seeps into your bones. Simple, yet it does little to explain why multiple explorers describe the same sensation. A sudden burst of icy breath against their necks, as if exhaled by someone standing behind them. Coincidence, shared psychology, or something science cannot measure? And what of the sightings? Psychologists speak of pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find faces and shapes where none exist. Shadows become figures. Bones become strangers crouching in the dark. But why do so many people see the same figures in the same locations, decade after decade? Shared hallucination, or something imprinted into the very stone. Even biology struggles here. Explorers who spend too long underground sometimes emerge with symptoms that doctors cannot explain. Vivid dreams that persist for weeks. Sudden aversions to light, a lingering sense of being followed. Medical tests show nothing unusual, yet their experiences remain undeniable. Skeptics laugh, of course. They insist that every mystery has a rational explanation. And perhaps they are right up to a point. But what makes the catacombs so terrifying is not that science has no answers. It is that its answers are incomplete, leaving gaps wide enough for terror to crawl through. Imagine standing here with a scientist by your side, clipboard in hand, measuring temperature, logging data. Even they would fall silent eventually, because numbers cannot explain the feeling that someone unseen is breathing down your neck. Equations do not erase the pounding of your heart when the silence suddenly shifts into something heavier, more alive. The catacombs remind us of a truth we prefer to ignore. Science explains much, but not everything. And in those gaps, those blind spots, we place our fears, our myths, our ghosts. Down here, beneath Paris, you begin to realize that sometimes even knowledge cannot save you. A night in the catacombs is not measured by hours. It is measured by heartbeats, by breaths, by the drip of water echoing like a ticking clock. Minutes stretch, expand, and fold back on themselves until time no longer feels linear. Down here, one night can feel like an eternity. Your mind plays cruel tricks with time when stripped of sunlight. In total darkness, the brain loses its sense of rhythm. Studies show that people isolated underground often misjudge hours as days, and days as mere minutes. You could swear you have been walking for half a day, only to check your watch and realize it has been 45 minutes. Or worse, you might think only an hour has passed when, in truth, dawn has already come and gone above you. Imagine lying on cold stone, waiting for morning. But there is no morning here. The catacombs have no sunrise, no birdsong, no light creeping across the walls. Every moment feels the same, and sameness stretches longer than suffering. The more you wait, the more the night grows, until you begin to wonder if it will ever end. Sleep offers no escape. The cold keeps you shivering. The silence keeps you alert, and the fear keeps your eyes wide. When you do drift off, your dreams are warped by the environment. You dream of skulls blinking, of tunnels rearranging themselves, of hands pulling you deeper. You wake unsure if you are awake at all. The line between dream and reality dissolves like mist. Survivors of long nights underground describe a peculiar sensation, that the catacombs are outside time itself. Hours crawl, yet vanish. Memories blur. Some claim they return to the surface with gaps in memory, unable to account for chunks of the night. Others insist they lived lifetimes in those hours. Lifetimes of fear, despair, and pleading for dawn. And here's the worst thought: maybe the catacombs want it that way. Maybe time does not just pass differently down here, it stops. For the millions who rest within these walls, days and years mean nothing. Perhaps spending a night here is enough to drag you halfway into their eternity, where the living and the dead measure time not by clocks, but by how long you can endure the silence. So, could you survive a night in the catacombs? Or would that single night feel longer than your entire life above ground? The catacombs are not only a grave, they are a stage. For centuries, the tunnels have drawn not just the curious, but also the secretive. The kind of people who see in darkness not fear, but opportunity. There are countless rumors of ceremonies held beneath Paris. Some were harmless, even artistic, poets and painters sneaking below with candles to recite verses among the dead, believing that mortality sharpened their creativity. But others whisper of gatherings far stranger. Groups meeting in chambers lined with skulls, chanting words in languages no longer spoken. Candles forming circles, symbols carved into stone. During the 19th century, reports emerged of clandestine societies using the catacombs as sanctuaries. Freemasons were said to conduct rituals here, hidden from the eyes of church and state. Revolutionaries plotted in silence, believing the dead would keep their secrets. And darker cults, some say devoted to death itself, performed rites meant to blur the line between life and the grave. One explorer claimed to stumble upon a chamber where melted wax coated the floor, hundreds of candles burned to stubs. Bones had been rearranged into patterns too deliberate to be accidents. Concentric circles, spirals, even the shape of an eye staring upward. He fled before discovering who had made it or why. Then came the modern discoveries. In 2004, police investigating a hidden section of the catacombs found something that stunned them: an underground theater, complete with a bar, rows of seats, and a giant screen. Whoever built it had wired electricity, run water, and left behind evidence of recent activity. Days later, the entire chamber was abandoned, as if its creators vanished overnight. A single message remained: do not try to find us. If such things are possible in recent years, what else might have happened in centuries past? What ceremonies were held in the dark, unseen, unheard, known only to the dead themselves? Imagine stumbling upon such a ritual. You enter a chamber expecting silence, and instead hear low chanting. Shadows move in rhythm, candles flare, skulls gleam like an audience. Do you run, do you watch, or do you wonder if the ritual is not for the dead at all, but for you? At first, getting lost feels like a mistake you can fix. You tell yourself, I will just retrace my steps. I will remember that corner. I will find the mark I left behind. But as the hours stretch, confidence unravels. The catacombs are not a puzzle to be solved. They are a maze designed to break your sense of direction. Your flashlight sweeps across endless corridors, each identical to the last: stone walls, arches, bones. You start to believe you have passed the same spot 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. But when you look closer, the details do not match. Was that crack there before? Was that skull leaning at that angle? The sameness twists your memory until you no longer know if you are circling or sinking deeper. Science explains it as spatial disorientation. Underground, without sunlight or landmarks, the brain struggles to build a map. Stress accelerates the collapse. Your internal compass spins, your judgment falters. Panic whispers that you must move faster, search harder. But the more frantic you become, the more likely you are to choose wrong turns. And every wrong turn in the catacombs pushes you farther from salvation. Imagine it: left, right, left, left again. The tunnels braid themselves around you. You try to stay calm, but anxiety gnaws louder. Your footsteps echo like accusations. Why did not you mark that wall? Why did not you turn back sooner? The thought that chills you most is not just "I am lost." It is "no one will ever find me." Explorers who have survived disorientation here describe terrifying breakdowns. Some collapse, sobbing, refusing to move. Others run blindly, scraping skin against stone, convinced they are being chased. A few speak of moments where they forgot why they were even underground, as if the labyrinth itself rewrote their purpose. And then there is the silence that follows realization. The moment you stop running. The moment you admit you no longer know where you are. The catacombs do not need to harm you at that point. They simply wait. You will wander in circles until your body gives out, until your light dies, until your voice grows hoarse, and the labyrinth, patient as ever, will absorb you. So when you imagine spending a night here, ask yourself, what is more terrifying, the thought of death, or the thought of never being found? Fear has a voice in the catacombs, and it speaks in echoes. Every sound you make, your breath, your footsteps, the nervous rustle of your jacket, returns to you distorted, as if the tunnels themselves are mocking your existence. At first, it is almost amusing. You cough and the echo comes back jagged, like laughter, but the longer you stay, the more sinister those echoes become. Imagine whispering to yourself for comfort, "I will be fine. I will make it out." The words barely leave your lips before the stone throws them back. Twisted, hollow, stripped of conviction. The catacombs do not echo reassurance. They echo dread. Psychologists explain it with acoustics. Sound waves bounce chaotically in the irregular tunnels, layering over themselves, producing phantom voices and false directions. But your heart does not care about science when you hear your name whispered from the dark, in your own voice, coming from behind you. The worst part is how easily echoes trick your instincts. Humans evolved to respond to sound as a signal of danger. A snap in the forest meant a predator. A cry in the distance meant someone needed help. In the catacombs, those instincts betray you. You hear a shuffle and think someone follows. You hear a murmur and imagine a crowd gathering just out of sight. Your pulse races. Your body prepares to fight or flee. But there is no enemy. Only your own fear multiplied and thrown back at you. Some explorers describe hearing entire conversations, as if dozens of people were speaking at once, their words overlapping into nonsense. Others claim to hear music, faint organ tones, or drums beating in rhythm with their steps. And once the mind accepts the possibility, every drip of water, every scrape of stone becomes a chorus of threats. Now picture the silence breaking suddenly. You drop a pebble and the sound explodes, bouncing in a dozen directions at once. It does not fade. It grows louder, fuller, until it feels like the walls are roaring at you. You clap your hands to your ears, but the sound lives inside your skull. Fear has found its instrument, and the catacombs are the amplifier. So ask yourself, if every sound you make is twisted into a weapon against you, how long before your own fear is the only voice you hear? Death in the catacombs does not come with drama. There are no cinematic battles, no grand finales. It comes quietly, patiently, like a shadow that waits for you to exhaust yourself. Down here, the danger is not always obvious. It is the slow erosion of body and mind. The first enemy is exhaustion. Every step drains more energy than it should. The air feels heavy, forcing your lungs to work harder. Muscles ache faster in the damp chill, and your stomach growls with a hunger that gnaws at your concentration. Your body weakens, but the tunnels never end. Then comes dehydration. The irony is cruel. You are surrounded by water, but none of it's safe to drink. Thirst scrapes your throat raw, clouds your judgment, and tempts you toward dark puddles shimmering with false promise. Just one sip, you think, but one sip could end faster than the thirst itself. And still, the most lethal threat is silence itself. Panic makes your heart pound, your breath quicken. But silence wears you down differently. It creeps into your thoughts, convinces you no one will ever hear you. No one will ever find you. That hopelessness gnaws at willpower until you no longer fight. You sit, you wait, and the catacombs wait with you. There are no predators stalking these tunnels, no monsters lurking in the dark. Yet explorers have died here, not because they were attacked, but because they surrendered to thirst, to fatigue, to despair. The catacombs do not kill with teeth or claws. They kill with indifference. And when it happens quietly. A flashlight flickers out. A body slumps against cold stone. Hours, days, even years later, bones are found leaning in corners. Hands still clutching useless tools. No screams, no struggle, only the stillness of a life erased. This is why a night here is so dangerous. It is not the ghosts, not the myths, not even the labyrinth itself. It is the fact that death in the catacombs does not announce itself. It whispers, waits, and embraces you when you no longer have the strength to resist. So ask yourself, could you keep fighting in that silence? Knowing that the enemy is not something chasing you, but the quiet certainty that the catacombs are waiting for you to stop. Not everyone who enters the catacombs is a victim. Some go willingly, even eagerly, seeking thrill, mystery, or glory. They call themselves cataphiles, urban explorers who dedicate their nights to wandering the forbidden sections of Paris's underground. For them, the catacombs are not a tomb but a playground, a canvas, a test of courage. They paint murals on the walls, carve their names into stone, and host clandestine parties in chambers meant for silence. To outsiders, they are reckless, perhaps foolish, but to cataphiles, they are keepers of a hidden world, daring to walk where others fear to tread. Yet even the boldest explorers admit the dangers. Many carry multiple flashlights, ropes, maps scribbled from memory. They move in groups, marking their paths with chalk. Still, mistakes happen. Batteries fail. Directions blur. The bravado fades when the tunnels stretch too far. Too dark, too quiet. Stories circulate among these communities. One explorer claims he stumbled into a chamber lit by candles, though no one else was there. Another swears he followed distant music for hours, only to discover silence at the end of the path. They laugh about it later, trading tales like trophies. But behind the laughter is respect, because everyone knows the catacombs take those who underestimate them. Some thrill seekers push the limits further. They dive into flooded passages, crawl through collapsing tunnels, or spend entire nights in the dark to prove their courage. Videos surface online, shaky beams of light, nervous breathing, muffled expletives when the camera catches something unexpected. For some, it is entertainment. For others, it is obsession. But the catacombs are indifferent to thrill or courage. They do not care if you came for art, for adventure, or for fame. They wait, patient as ever, for mistakes. And when mistakes come, the explorers who thought themselves invincible discover they are just as fragile as anyone else. So the question is not why people enter. Curiosity is human. The question is whether anyone truly leaves unchanged. Because those who dare challenge the catacombs carry something back with them. Whether it is a story, a scar, or a shadow that follows them long after they have returned to the surface. Above the catacombs, life continues. Cafes glow with warm light, couples stroll along the Seine, cars hum through narrow streets. Paris breathes, oblivious to the silent city beneath its feet. For those underground, this contrast is unbearable. While millions sleep safely in their beds, you are entombed in stone, fighting shadows and silence. Imagine it, somewhere above your head, laughter spills from a bar. Someone clinks a glass of wine. Someone whispers a promise on a balcony. But down here, there is only dripping water and the echo of your pulse. Two worlds stacked atop each other, one vibrant, one decaying, and you are trapped in the wrong one. This thought drives many explorers mad. The knowledge that salvation is so close yet impossibly far. Perhaps only 20 or 30 meters of stone separates you from the surface. A few steps in the right direction and you would be free, but the labyrinth twists and the exits vanish. You might scream, but your voice will never reach above. The city sleeps while you suffocate in silence. Worse still is the feeling of being forgotten. No one above knows where you are. No one imagines you lying on cold rock while the Eiffel Tower glitters. Your suffering is invisible, buried beneath music, traffic, and dreams. That invisibility is its own kind of death, the death of being erased from the world of the living while you are still alive. Some survivors speak of hearing phantom noises from the surface, faint bells of Notre Dame, the distant rumble of trains, the hum of life. Scientists suggest it is the brain straining for sound, amplifying vibrations through stone. But to those lost in the catacombs, those faint traces are torture. They remind you of everything you have lost, everything you may never return to. And so the catacombs hold a cruel irony. While Paris sleeps peacefully above, you endure a night longer than eternity below. One world dreams of love, music, and light. The other devours you with silence. And only a few meters of stone keep you from choosing between them. Light is your lifeline in the catacombs. The thin beam of your flashlight carves order out of chaos, creating fragile islands of certainty in a sea of dark. Every step, every breath depends on it. But what happens when the very thing you trust turns against you? At first, it is subtle. The batteries drain faster than expected. The beam flickers once, twice, then steadies again. You tell yourself it is fine, just a glitch. But deep down, you know every flicker is a countdown, every second of dimming a reminder that darkness is patient. Your eyes strain in the gloom beyond the circle of light. You start to imagine movement, figures shifting just at the edge of vision. The weaker the light grows, the more your imagination fills the void. The catacombs do not even need to whisper. Your own brain supplies the horrors. Some explorers describe the cruelest illusion of all, when light does not just fade, but changes. Shadows bend the wrong way. The beam seems to split, doubling objects like a mirage. A skull looks intact until the light shifts and reveals cracks like a grin. A passage seems open, but the angle twists and it dead ends. In the catacombs, light itself conspires to lie. And then, of course, there is the moment the light dies entirely. One click and nothing. No shadows, no outlines, just total black, thick as liquid, pressing against your eyes. In that instant, you learn the meaning of absolute darkness. You wave your hand in front of your face, but see nothing. You blink, but the black does not change. Time itself seems to stop. Science tells us the human eye adapts to low light, but here adaptation is useless. There is no faint moon, no distant lamp, no star. There is only the suffocating dark, endless and whole. Some say this is when the real hallucinations begin, glowing shapes, phantom flames, even the sense that your body is dissolving into shadow. And here lies the cruelest truth. In the catacombs, light is never permanent. Batteries fail, flames sputter, and when they do, you are left with the one companion you never wanted. Darkness, pure and eternal. So ask yourself, could you still move forward, step by trembling step, when your only ally betrays you? At first, silence feels like a relief. No cars, no voices, no clamor of the city above. Just stillness. But in the catacombs, silence is not empty. It is alive, presses against your ears, swells in your skull, until you realize it is louder than any scream. You try to comfort yourself with your own sounds. Cough, a shuffle, the tap of your boots. But soon even those fade, swallowed by stone. What remains is the weight of nothing, a suffocating absence that grows heavier the longer you listen. Silence here does not soothe, it suffocates. Psychologists call it sensory deprivation. In environments stripped of sound, the brain rebels. It invents noises to fill the void, faint hums, phantom voices, distant footsteps. But the cruel trick is this: your mind convinces you they are real. A scrape behind you, a sigh over your shoulder, a child's laugh that vanishes as soon as you turn. Some explorers describe silence as a physical force. One said it felt like cotton stuffed in his lungs, making every breath shallow. Another swore the silence bent around his body, squeezing tighter with every step. And still others insist the silence whispers, not with sound, but with suggestion. You are alone. You are forgotten. You will not leave. Now imagine it stretching for hours. No music, no voices, not even the sound of your own heartbeat, drowned by the weight of stillness. You shout just to hear something, but your voice dies quickly, collapsing into the stone. The echo returns thin, broken, as if the tunnels themselves refuse to acknowledge you. And then comes the breaking point, the moment when silence grows so deep it becomes noise, a roar of absence, a scream of nothingness. Your skull vibrates with it. Your teeth ache, your sanity frays. You cover your ears, but there is nothing to block. The silence is inside you, woven into your nerves, your blood, your mind. That is when you understand, in the catacombs, silence is not the lack of sound. It is a predator, patient and endless, waiting to unravel you. And by the time you hear it scream, it may already be too late. The catacombs do not need monsters to terrify you. They only need time enough to strip away your sense of self. Down here, identity frays. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to remember not just where you are, but who you are. First, it is small things. You forget how long you have been walking. You can't recall if you passed that skull-lined archway minutes ago or hours ago. Then your thoughts blur further. You repeat words to yourself, your name, your purpose, your destination, like a mantra to hold reality together. But the stone does not care. The walls echo your name back, hollow, mocking, until you begin to doubt if it ever belonged to you at all. Psychologists call this ego dissolution. In environments of extreme monotony and isolation, the brain struggles to anchor itself. Without external reminders, sunlight, clocks, conversation, your mind drifts inward, collapsing under its own weight. The catacombs accelerate this collapse. Every skull is a mirror, every tunnel a loop, until you cannot tell whether you are moving forward or simply circling your own unraveling mind. Some explorers describe the sensation of becoming part of the catacombs. Not metaphorically, but literally. They felt their bodies dissolve into the stone, their breath sinking with the dripping water, their thoughts scattering into the silence. One man wrote in his journal, later recovered, "I no longer walk through the catacombs. The catacombs walk through me." The most terrifying part is how seductive the loss feels. Fear does not just terrify, it exhausts. And when exhaustion peaks, surrender seems peaceful. You stop fighting to stay yourself. You stop clinging to memories of the surface. The catacombs offer an escape from struggle, dissolve, fade, become nothing. For some, that is the final temptation. Imagine it. You sit down, back against stone, and let the darkness wash over you. Your name slips away first, then your purpose, then every tether holding you to life above. What remains is silence, bone, and shadow. You have become another echo, another whisper in the labyrinth. So when people ask why you would not last a night here, the answer is simple. Because the catacombs do not just swallow bodies, they swallow identities. And the moment you stop recognizing yourself, you are already gone. On the surface, dawn is inevitable. The sun rises, birds sing, the city stirs to life. But in the catacombs, dawn does not exist. There is no horizon, no sky, no promise of light creeping in to end the night. Down here, the night is eternal. You wait for it anyway. Your mind clings to the rhythm of life above. Morning must come. Shadows must shorten. Warmth must return. But the hours drag on, and nothing changes. The walls stay black. The air stays cold. And slowly you realize you could wait forever, and dawn would never find you here. This absence of morning is its own kind of terror. Humans survive on cycles, day and night, sleep and wake, hunger and fullness. Without them, the body falters, the mind decays. In the catacombs, you lose not just the sense of time, but the hope that time is moving at all. It feels as though you are trapped outside of history, exiled into a place where clocks have no meaning. Some explorers describe the horror of counting. They tried to measure the hours by heartbeats, by footsteps, by the drip of water. But every attempt collapsed into chaos. Numbers blurred, rhythms slipped. One survivor said he counted to 10,000, convinced morning would follow, and when nothing changed, he broke down, sobbing into the silence. The cruelest part is that above you, Paris moves on. The sun rises over the Seine. Commuters sip their coffee. Children laugh on their way to school. Life continues, indifferent. You are forgotten, sealed in a world where dawn has no power. Imagine it, you sit against the wall, whispering to yourself, just a little longer. Morning will come. But the morning does not belong here. The catacombs have their own rules, their own eternity. And when you finally accept that truth, you understand why a night here is impossible. Because a night requires a morning to follow. And in the catacombs, morning never comes. And now, we rise back to the surface. The echoes fade, the shadows fall behind, and once again, you breathe the air of the living. But even here, safe in your room, perhaps you still feel the weight of stone above, the whispers below, the endless night of the catacombs pressing against your imagination. You see, surviving a night in the catacombs was never really about bones or tunnels. It was about fear, about what the human mind becomes when stripped of light, warmth, and hope. Down there, you do not just fight the darkness, you fight yourself. So if you have stayed with me until now, thank you. Thank you for stepping into this journey, for daring to wander through silence, shadows, and secrets. I hope tonight's story gave you chills, maybe made you laugh nervously once or twice, and most of all, reminded you how fragile and powerful the human mind truly is. Now, I would love to hear from you. Could you last a single night in the catacombs? Would you fight? Would you pray? Would you surrender? Or would you never even step through that first narrow entrance? Tell me in the comments. I am curious to know your thoughts, your fears, your survival strategies. And while you are there, let me know what dark mystery, what hidden legend you would like us to explore together next time. Until then, sleep well, if you can.